As a member of the IPOD summit, I am finding it extremely strange that I cannot even put input on the goings on of IPOD on record. You see, Madam Speaker, every parliament we have debated a memorandum, and there's a current memorandum which is standing for IPOD. And the chair of IPOD for the last 4 years has been NRM. And if there's any breach, it is NRM who have failed to call a summit or even a council meeting. So it is important that we deal with this actual issue, because what are we correcting? What is the sickness? What is the disease we're correcting? At the moment, the summit has not sat since NRM has been in the chair for 4 years. Yet it's supposed to be 6 months. The provisions which are being brought now are being brought in bad faith, because in the last parliament, under the chairmanship of Honorable Both, IPOD brought it, and I personally presented them to the same committee. Because the increased funding which came in a supplementary of 2020 had IPOD in it. And how was that money to be shared? At that time, political parties were sharing 10 billion per annum. Under the IPOD arrangement, it was increased to 35, with 5 billion going as the 15%, another 5 billion for covering the other 15%, and then 70%, the 25 billion, was on numerical strength. At that time, the president acknowledged that NRM acted in bad faith by not allowing that amendment to pass. They acted in bad faith. The words of the president, unchristian. And now we are going through a process to undermine everything. There's no dialogue here. If we talk about dialogue as a political party, as a leader of a political party, as the political party which first held the first summit, from 2009, the first summit was held in December 2018 under my chairmanship. And the principles which we're debating is what we agreed in that. It's under the Democratic Party that they put flesh on those principles. And honestly, Madam Speaker, are we proceeding well when we cannot discuss this issue? I have not been consulted as a leader of the summit. As a political party, we have not been consulted. How is it that we're debating this issue? And that is why I say it is diabolical. It is not done in the interest of the political players. I speak for UPC. My brother Asuman is not part of this. And I'm thankful that Mao is not here to embarrass himself. This is wrong. And we shall all be judged.
Thank you.
Let us be honest.
You still have a gap as members of IPOD to go and ensure that you discuss this issue and maybe ask the president not to assent.
Clause 1 of the bill is amended by substituting for the proposed subsection 2 the following. So the new subsection 2 is, notwithstanding subsection 1 of the government, notwithstanding subsection 1, the government shall only provide funds for or other resources to a political party or organization referred to in subsection 1 if the political party or organization is a member of the inter-party organization for dialogue and participates in activities of the inter-party organization for dialogue. Justification for clarity: to require a political party and organization to not only be a member of the inter-party organization for dialogue, but also participates in the activities of the inter-party organization for dialogue.
The ayes have it.
Clause 1 as amended.
I put a question that clause 1 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
I put a question that clause 2 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 3.
I put a question that clause 3 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Title.
I put a question that the title stands part of the bill. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Motion for resumption of the House.
Honorable Nakut.
The House adopts the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
I put a question that the report of the Committee of the Whole House be adopted by this House. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Bill's third reading, the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025.
Honorable Nakut.
The issue touching the Constitution and our rules on quorum, I can confirm the number of members present, I request that you put on record the number of people attending online so that we can confirm that the 47 you mentioned.
I move that a motion that the bill entitled the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025 be read for the third time and do passed.
I put a question that the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025 be read the third time and do pass. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act titled the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Act 2025.
Title settled and the bill passed. Next item.
The Uganda People's Defense Forces Amendment Bill 2025.
Honorable members, you recall on Tuesday 13, 2025, the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs tabled the bill, the Uganda People's Defense Forces Bill 2025 for the first reading. The bill was read for the first time and referred to the Joint Committee of Defense and Internal Affairs and the Committee of Legal and Parliamentary Affairs pursuant to Rule 200, the Rules of Procedure. The Joint Committee is now ready to report, and pursuant to Rule 136(1) of the Rules of Procedure, I will invite the Chair of Defense and Veteran Affairs to move a motion to that effect. Defense and the Minister of Defense and...
The record of this House has it that this bill is actually intended to rectify, to remedy the existing defects in the law. The last time this Parliament handled this bill was 2005, and the Uganda People's Defense Forces Act 2005 was enacted in 2005 to provide for the regulation of the Uganda People's Defense Forces in accordance with Article 210 of the Constitution. It repealed...
Honorable, I meant Honorable Muhes, not Muhos. Muhes, not Muhos. And Honorable Tafire.
It repealed and replaced the Armed Forces Pensions Act, Cap 295, and the Uganda People's Defense Forces Act, Cap 307. Since 2005, the defense sector has undergone significant transformation arising from both emerging threats and opportunities. Several of them were unforeseen and not adequately addressed by the Uganda People's Defense Forces Act, Cap 330. The Act, for instance, did not provide for the provision of health care for the officers and management of militants. It did not also provide for the management of military veterans, management of pension and conferring of service medals by the defense forces. It is important, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, to note that since 2005, the administrative structure of the Uganda People's Defense Forces has evolved. This in turn has led to the Special Forces Command and the Reserve Forces being elevated from divisions under the Land Forces to independent services. The amendment before you today has taken this into account. Additionally, following the judgment of the Supreme Court in Constitutional Appeal number 2 of 2021, Attorney General versus Honorable Michael Kabazikuruka, that name there is need to align the provisions of the Act with the Supreme Court decision. This bill accordingly gives effect to the orders and recommendations of the Supreme Court. And, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, I believe that the justifications as are embedded in the remedies proposed in the bill, one of them is to align the Act with the new government policies and the command, control, and other administrative structures of the defense forces. Another one is to improve the welfare of the officers and militants of the defense forces, to address the glaring gaps in health care by providing for health care for officers and militants. 3, to harmonize the management of military veterans. 4, to provide for the decentralization of pension authority from the Ministry of Public Service to the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs. 5, to enhance disability compensation to enable fair payment of compensation to officers and militants of the defense forces for injuries sustained while on duty and address the resulting challenges faced by officers and militants living with post-traumatic stress disorder. 6, to restructure and re-establish the courts-martial in the defense forces in accordance with Article 129(1)(d) of the Constitution and prescribe their jurisdiction to provide for the membership and qualification of presiding officers of the courts-martial and for the independence of the courts-martial. 7, to provide for appeals from the courts-martial. 8, to prescribe exceptional circumstances under which civilians may be tried by the courts-martial. Next is to establish a military courts department which shall be responsible for the administration of justice within the defense forces and provide for its membership. Again, to establish a disciplinary unit within the defense forces which shall be responsible for the discipline of the members of the military courts department. And finally, on that is to prescribe the arms and ammunition which are the monopoly of the defense forces and classified stores of the defense forces. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable colleagues, this law is not about civilians being before courts-martial. This law is about civilians who voluntarily acquire arms, equipments of violence. This law is also about the civilians who voluntarily masquerade as militants. This law is about those who would commit offense with the military or with the help of any military officer to be tried as proposed. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to dispel the fear that this law is targeting 45 million Ugandans. That's a lie. This law is targeting those people who have preoccupation in their minds to commit offense against Ugandans. This law is to protect Ugandans, the vulnerable Ugandans, against violent people who have firearms or who behave like military personnel. I beg to submit.